Let's kick things off with a pretty big question. What if the entire way we fund education in America is just fundamentally broken? That's the wild idea at the center of this book, The End of Enrollment-Based Subsidies. It's proposing a complete overhaul of how we pay for college, career training, you name it. So let's dive into this provocative concept.
Think about it for a second. That degree or certificate you worked so hard for, is it a true credential that proves you have skills, or is it more like a really, really expensive receipt for time served? The book argues that our current system is basically funding the receipt. We're paying for seats in a classroom, not for skills learned.
Okay, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the current system of paying for the promise. Then, we'll see why the old ways of measuring quality just aren't cutting it anymore. After that, we'll get into how technology opens up a new path forward by funding verified results. And finally, we'll explore what this new education contract might actually look like.
All right, so to really get a handle on the solution being proposed, we first have to wrap our heads around the problem. And the book's entire argument starts with our current funding model, which it calls paying for the promise.
So at the very heart of the issue is this thing called the enrollment-based subsidy. It sounds a little technical, but the idea is simple. Public money, think federal financial aid, goes to a school the second a student enrolls. But here's the crucial part. That money isn't tied to any kind of outcome. It doesn't matter if the student graduates, gets a license, or ever finds a job in their field. The school already got paid.
And that leads us to the core problem the book identifies. Our system is built to pay for intent, the promise of a better life, the hope of a good job. But as the book argues, there is a massive difference between paying for a promise and paying for a proven, tangible result.
Now this slide really shows where the system's logic breaks down. It's all about who carries the risk. So who's left holding the bag if things don't work out? Well, first, it's the learners, who are saddled with debt whether they get a job or not. And then it's the taxpayers, who are on the hook when those loans go into default. And the institutions? They face practically no financial fallout when a student fails. It's a totally imbalanced system.
Okay, so you might be thinking, well, hold on, don't we have things like accreditation to make sure schools are good? And yeah, we do. But the book makes a pretty compelling case that this system, our old guard for quality, is now just a broken proxy. And here's the key disconnect. Accreditation is really good at measuring inputs, things like faculty-to-student ratios or the size of the library. It's all about process. But it doesn't really measure the outcomes that students and families actually care about. Did you master the skill? Did you pass the board exam? Did you get the job? Accreditation, for the most part, doesn't answer those questions.
This quote from the book is just so spot on. The system does not require fraud to produce misleading data. It only requires pressure. Think about that. When schools get paid up front for enrollment and then are asked to report their own success rates, you've got a massive conflict of interest. The pressure to make the numbers look good can lead to some very creative reporting.
So if the old system is broken, what's the fix? Well, this is where the argument gets really exciting. The book says that technology has brought us to a genuine turning point, what it calls the age of verification. This right here is the game changer. In an era of AI and advanced data systems, clinging to old proxies like accreditation just doesn't make sense anymore. Technology means we can finally shift from a system of trusting institutions to a system of verifying real-world results.
And you know what the best part is? We don't have to build some crazy new system from scratch. The book points out that we already have these incredible independent data sources. We can use state wage records, tax filings, and licensing databases to actually verify outcomes without ever having to ask the school. The data is already there, waiting to be used.
All right, let's see how this all clicks together in the book's big proposal, the humanization model.
The humanization model completely flips the current system on its head. Instead of putting the institution at the center, it focuses on the graduate, the human being. Public funds are no longer an upfront subsidy to a school, they're a reimbursement for a student's verified success.
And the engine that powers this new model is called graduate-based reimbursement. It's basically a pay-for-performance system. Money is only released after a student hits those key milestones. They complete the program, get their license, land that job. The financial risk finally moves from the student's shoulders to the system where it belongs.
So the fundamental shift here is all about trust. We stop relying on an institution's claims, their attestation, and instead, public money responds to independently verified proof that a person is contributing to the workforce and the economy.
And this isn't some all-or-nothing deal. The book proposes a really clever tiered system. A school gets a piece of the funding when a student completes the program. They get another chunk when that student earns a professional license. They get even more once employment is verified through wage data. And the final payment might only come after that person has been on the job for a year. I mean, imagine that welding program. The school gets a little when the student graduates, some more when she passes her certification, and the big final payout only comes after state data proves she's been working as a welder for 6 months. Suddenly, the school's incentive is perfectly aligned with her success. So, what does this all add up to? The book argues that what we're really talking about here is a new and much more honest social contract for education.
This slide just sums it up perfectly. We'd move from paying for intent to paying for results, from trusting institutions to trusting verifiable data. And crucially, we'd shift the financial risk away from students and taxpayers and put it where it belongs, aligning it with performance. The providers that deliver real value will thrive, and those that don't will no longer be subsidized for failing.
And this final quote really captures the moral heart of the book's argument. It's about respecting both the taxpayer and the student, and making sure the public money is rewarding proven success, not just good intentions.
So the book leaves us all with a really powerful question to chew on. In an age of verification, should our public money reward intent, or should it demand proven results? It's a debate that really strikes at the very core of what we expect from our education system.